Alright, Dale Wyman here. Told you I'd follow up from my last video with a little on the water video, and as you can see in front of me on my dash, I got the HDS 7 that everything was connected to up and running, as well as the HDS 12, and something right up here you can see right off the bat is HDS 7. That's actually where I have everything sourced from right now, because for obvious reasons, as I went through in the last video, everything was connected to it. So the first thing I'd like to do is go into the pages and demonstrate something that I believe I've been asked many questions on before. If I go to structure scan, all right, I want you to notice right down here as well, all right, that the source is currently HDS 7T. Well, if you remember, that's where the LSS2 transducer was connected to. So watch what happens when I change that to this unit. All right, immediately, if you look up at the top of the screen, you can see something interesting right away. I have no structure scan. All right, so if you get a new unit, you get a new boat with all these nice electronics on them, and again, everything is connected to the 7 or another unit. Let's say you have a 9, and you try to source off of the unit where the LSS2 transducer is not connected to. Well, that's exactly what you're going to get, a nice white line right down through the middle, and no structure scan, side view, anything. All right, so what we want to do is obviously go back to the HDS 7, and instantly you can see that the side scan is working perfect. All right, so when that actually fills the screen, I'll show you some of the other. We go back on this, and now you have the menu for your structure scan. Every time you change your window, of course, the menu items change, or not the window, the page. So used to computers, I refer to them as windows, but you can see we have a lot of rock bottom here. The white is a very hard bottom. So let's take a look at some of the things that we can do here. You can see I have the range set to 100 feet right now, but if you go back and you just choose auto, it'll auto range itself. I like to choose my own depth so that it's not always trying to adjust itself with auto. Sometimes you can get a gap in what's being displayed, and now you can start to see a little bit of weeds here coming up off the bottom. These dots, you know, are some fish, but again, I leave it on auto and go back. Here's where you would select the frequency. All right, let's take a look. We can go to 800, and what 800 over 455 does is it gives you much more detail. All right, it's a higher frequency, so therefore you're getting more detail. You can start to see over here, these little cotton ball type things on the display. That could be some weed, that could be some rock. All right, just starting to see a little bit of some weed here, not a whole lot. So, you know, you can zoom in. All right, but the main thing here is I wanted to show you was the source. If your transducer is connected up to the source unit, I mean up to the HDS 7 in this case, that should be your source. Okay, here what I'd like to demo on the HDS 12 in particular, I've chose to split the screen. And remember, with down and side scan imaging, you have to be moving, all right, for it to actually work. But what I'd like to demonstrate is, you can see the bottom right here, this white line and a strong yellow return right here. That's telling me it's a hard bottom. All right, very hard bottom. And over here on the traditional 2D sonar, all right, you can start to see some weeds right here. But if you take a look with the down scan imaging, all right, you can see those weeds are much more defined. All right, some people with traditional 2D sonar might think that those are rocks. All right, but by looking at your down scan, you can clearly see that those are weeds. You can almost count the individual strands here. Here the weed bed's starting to get a little bit a little thicker, and you can see that over here as well. I like to contrast both the 2D sonar and the down scan or side scan imaging at times. Here's a little ball of bait fish, all right, or a little clump of bait fish probably, and you can see that over here as well. So if you're looking for weed beds, all right, these are your tools generally. All right, as we know, you find a weed, you find a fish. This menu here I thought I'd drop into real quick because I mentioned some of the data that is output from the outboard and the boat itself and various sensors. And here you have it. All right, you can see you can change the dashes over here, you can change the layout. There's so much you can do, but you can see I have SOG, or speed over ground. All right, here I have RPMs. You can see I just stepped a little bit, my RPMs came up. All right, engine fuel, water pressure, all right, load, alternator, make sure that she's charging, all right, the voltage, all kinds of stuff. The trim, let's see, if I adjust the trim, you can start to see the trim gauge go up there. All right, if I bring it back down, you can see that I'm trimmed all the way down. And down here is the other dash that I told you I had in the video yesterday, this electronic dash. It's pretty good. You got trim here. You can see I'm trimming up, and that's increasing. I'm trimming down. All right, various buttons down here. You can see my fuel level, my engine oil level, all kinds of things. We hit the home button, and again, here's RPM, miles per hour, trim, anything that you could possibly want to see. All right, so that's just one more menu. I really didn't use this a lot in my last boat because I don't believe I had everything connected up like I do on a Triton. But this is awesome. All right, just another page. All right, here we go into, again, from my previous touch and hold, you can do sonar plus chart. All right, the charts take a while to come up sometimes. All right, but here we are. I'm on Hamilton Reservoir today. And if I touch this screen, all right, and I zoom out, you can see where I am. You can see the depth contours and everything. All right, chart options. This is where you would, your chart source between the Navionics and the built-in charting technology that comes with the HDS. All right, so you can look at community edits, things people have put on, change your view. You basically just got to get out on the water. Like today is a bluebird sky. I don't really care to catch any fish. I just want to come through or get out on the water rather and go through, is what I meant to say, various things on my new electronics and get familiar with them. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to look at my Navionics here. I can see there's a deep hole over here on Hamilton Reservoir. Probably a lot of the bass already, if they're not up on shore chasing bait fish, which a lot of times in the fall, bait fish will come up shallow in the coves, and if you can find them, you can find the fish. But I am going to head over towards this hole right here and see if I can jump up onto the front unit, go over to set up there, maybe do a little drop shotting. And people look at me in disbelief sometimes when I tell them, yeah, if your units are adjusted right, you can see your line, you can see your weight, you can see your bait. Not so much the line, the weight as it falls, you'll see a distinct line on your graph. Same thing with a bait. Typical drop shot, you got your weight at the bottom, your bait up, whatever height you want it at. You should be able to see both, all right, if you don't have your weight resting right on the bottom, but you sure can see it go down through the water column. You can see if fish follow it, and if there's fish on the bottom, it's kind of like video game fishing. You can actually see that fish come up, check out your bait, and hopefully grab it. They'll have a fish on. Now, just a quick thing about when you're viewing your unit, if you want to take a screenshot, all right, with both the older HDS Gen 2s and now the Gen 3s, if you want to take a screenshot of what you're looking at, you just press the page and the power button together. See, it temporarily pauses. Took the picture, and generally right here, screen captured, shot 003. I just did it a couple of times before, to take a couple pictures of some weed beds that I marked. But that's another helpful tip. So as you can see here, because I have both a 2D sonar and my map showing, my Navionics map, you can see I'm coming up on that deeper hole, and it's accurate. You can see I just went over a 15-foot depth line, and I'm dropping down into 16 now as I move closer towards this hole. So I'm hoping perhaps I'll see some fish. If not, I'll just there's a bait fish there. It's not a huge return, right at 14 feet. There's some more here. Oh, look at that. We're starting to see quite a bit more fish here. So hopefully, once I stop in this area, all right, I can do a little demo before the wind picks up. Starting to get windy. I want to do a little demo on setting up the front unit and some drop shotting. So we'll see. This is kind of what I like to see, a little weed bed here, possibly even a little vertical stacking of some fish, but there's definitely some arches right next to it. You can actually just touch it, all right, hit the waypoint marker, enter, and we have a waypoint stored right there, so I can use that after I hit clear cursor. I can always just use my trolling motor. Seeing we're sharing an Navionics chip, and zoom right in and go right back to that particular waypoint, which is actually, I'll demo that. I'll zoom in a little bit, and I'll use the boat to just come around and circle right back to that waypoint where I really started to mark some fish, and we'll see if they're holding there. So as I tell people all the time, and obviously a lot of my club members and fishermen that I've met, they've got this stuff pretty much down pat, but to someone that's new, some of these videos can be very helpful. You can see those blue returns are not as strong of a return. They're definitely bait fish though. You have that nice defined arch as I'm moving across those fish. I'm going to steer right back at my waypoint, and let's see if they're just holding right there. So now that looks like a little clump of bait fish right there, and if you look below them, you can see those arches. Those are fish. There's bait fish again. So I'm getting off my waypoint as I'm talking, but you can definitely see I found some bait fish here, and lots of them. All right, that's probably a little bit of backwash from my motor as I turn, but see those fish, those arches right below that bait fish? They are there. All right, so this might be a good area just to stop and try to jump up to the front and do a quick demo on drop shotting, I hope. So here I'm up on the bow, and I have my screen split again. See, I'm sharing a Navionics chip that I have installed on the console unit, so I'm looking at the same deep hole in my waypoint that I put on back there. So when your units are connected via Ethernet, all right, your waypoints are also shared. So right now I don't even have my foot on the trolling motor. I'm going to go through some settings here, because one of the things I want to point out, if you're going to drop shot, you don't want to be sourcing off the HDS7. Why? Because that transducer is the through hull transducer. All right, that would be showing you fish directly below the stern. All right, it's mounted back there in the battery compartment below the battery charger. Well, I want to look, right, and you can see those bait fish starting to come back into the 2D sonar. So they are right behind the boat. But you can see I'm just drifting. Again, I don't even have my foot or anything on the trolling motor yet, because I want to go through and change some things. So I'm going to get into those menus. I'll pause this and then I'll come back. All right, so the very first thing, as I mentioned, that we need to do is change our source. I want to be using the transducer that's mounted. Actually, it's built right in this new universal sonar that comes with a Minn Kota Fortrex. So I want to definitely come back here and choose the source and choose the top option, which is this unit. You can see, because they're networked right now, it sees the 12, it sees the 7, and it sees this unit. So we choose that, and you can see a break over here in the sonar screen as it changed. So right now what I'm doing is I'm looking directly below the trolling motor transducer, and I like to have the map over here zoomed all the way in, right? And that way, that will keep me, I can use my trolling motor to stay right on that waypoint where I marked all those fish. But you can see I'm drifting over them right now. All right, so I'm going to get a few other things set up, and again, I'll come back. So I'm back on the sonar screen. You can see it's I have that activated. I touched it, and you have the orange border around it. But one of the things that I wanted to mention when you get ready to set up for drop shotting, right, is from advanced, all right, go back in, ping speed, and set that to max. All right, that's sending out the signal as fast as it can, and you want that because if you're going to try to track, all right, a 1/8, a quarter, half ounce piece of tungsten, you want that signal going down as fast as you possibly can to send sonar returns back to your head end unit, back to your HDS. All right, lastly, before I start to actually do some drop shotting, you can see some fish right there on the bottom. That little hump right there may just look like a rock or something down there, but my guess is just from experience and seeing that, especially using these units out on the ice, that was a fish. And you can see there was some bait fish right above it. So what I like to do is come back over here and just zoom in once. All right. All right, now what I'm doing is I'm just using my hand actually while I do this video, just to show you that I'm using the foot control and stuff by hand, just to get me back on that GPS waypoint that I dropped in there, and you saw those bait fish there. So they're definitely right in this area. All right, and again, you can zoom right in on that as much as you want. All right, and get right on top of that waypoint. And again, the bait fish are out in this general area. They are moving. So if you follow them, you just drop another waypoint, and you can get right back on top of them again. See where they're moving to. And so when you're drop shotting, you really want to use both your sonar. And I've chose to turn on the vertical flasher here, or the amplitude scope, before I start drop shotting. It's always my luck. The wind is really starting to kick up here, so I'm going to break out my drop shot rig and see if I can actually show you that, because I have this set right now over here, sonar, I have the amplitude scope, I had the ping speed up to max. Sensitivity, you might want to, we'll leave it on auto right now. I'll show you when I get out the drop shot rig. But see right there, that's definitely a fish, and you can see it on the amplitude scope as well. I had my drop shot bait down there. I should have been able to catch that fish. So hopefully the wind will stop blowing here, and I can get back on top of them and show you. All right, so what I have here is just simply it's a 1/8 ounce drop shot weight. All right, it's up about a foot above my hook, just a regular drop shot hook with a Palomar and a Dream Shot tied on there. We'll jump up to the front and see if I can demo on the sonar watching this. All right, the wind's really picking up, but you can see again from this view my waypoint. I'm headed right at it, and you can see those bait fish. The only thing I changed, if you look all the way over to the right, is I did increase the sensitivity, all right, so that I could see my bait a little bit more. All right, this is just a 6-pound fluorocarbon, all right, typical drop shot rig, very small weight, 1/8 ounce tungsten, and I'm going to try to get the nose into the wind here and just demo, all right, as this tungsten weight and bait drops. Hopefully you're going to be able to see it. And if the noise background's getting a little tough, it's as the wind's picking up. All right, so I'm dropping my bait down, and there's a fish. You can see my bait and my weight right there. Those two lines. One's my bait, one's my weight. All right, sorry. Now you can see it. See the two vertical lines that came down? You can see my bait and my weight right on the bottom. That horizontal line, about a foot above the bottom, all right, is my bait right there. All right, I have to adjust this camera and it makes noise, but you can see it. All right, so she's there. I'm going to reel it up, and I'm going to drop her back down. See right there, my bait and my weight coming down on the amplitude scope. You know right there I'm on the bottom, and you can see my drop shot weight. And right now I'm not seeing any fish, but I'm just moving it slightly. All right, and if there was a fish in the area, like I said, you can see on the amplitude scope, I'm just off to the left of my trolling motor a little bit. All right, and if I lift my weight, you can see both right there. See the two lines? One's my weight, the other one's my bait. All right, and if a fish was in that area, you could see that come right up and hit your bait. So when people tell me, all right, they can't see their bait and their weight, it's probably just a few minor adjustments, all right, on their sonar unit. And again, I'm doing this to demo. I'm just lifting, and you can see it. My bait and my weight's actually drifting behind the outside of the cone right now. One more time as I drop my bait. Should see it coming right down on the amplitude scope. Boom, hit the bottom. I'm right there. The vertical line about a foot. That's that little dream shot. All right, little 4-inch worm. All right, and I can just watch this. If I was in a school of smallies or anything, you would see that fish come right to that bait and grab it. It's what we call video game fishing. Pretty cool when they're on it. Hopefully you can see right there those two vertical lines again on the left. That was my bait and my weight dropping right down into the center of that bait fish. All right, but the wind's pulling me off, so it's really hard. I'm going to try to drop right back down there again. All right, there's my bait and my weight coming down. Boom, I'm right in them. You can see right there on the left of the sonar, I definitely had some fish interested in the drop shot. I lifted it up and they just didn't hit it. Again, what you're looking at right there is my bait and my weight. Another shot, bait and weight. You can see I'm just lifting it. So you can see there's a fish there on the amplitude scope, but it's way above it. Sometimes if you try to bring up your bait, you'll get them. That particular one looked at mine but didn't want it. Hopefully this will help demo something. Again, you can see my my weight there, the horizontal line on the bottom. But as the wind's blowing me off of it, I'm getting further and further and further out of that cone. But notice the frequency I have set on the right hand side is 200. 200 gives you a smaller cone. All right, so now that I'm drifting out, I want to switch it to 83. And look at that. I mean, 83 kHz, all right, gives you a wider cone, all right, and that brings my bait and my weight right back into the screen, all right, and makes it much more visible again. That's me lifting it and dropping it. You see that little sawtooth pattern on the bottom? I'm way out of it right now because the wind's blowing like crazy. Well, it's not like crazy, but it's blowing me off of it. So you can see this is pretty hard to do when it's real windy. I don't know how those pros do it, but man, they stay right on top of the fish, and they got gusting and white caps, but it's pretty evident right there, you know. And you can see on this 83 kHz, I'm picking up a lot more stuff towards the top. I could go back in and reduce the surface clutter and get rid of a lot of that, but I like the amplitude scope or the vertical flasher as well, because that also gives you an indication of what's going on. You can see me again, I'm lifting and dropping my bait, and I get that sawtooth pattern, but I'm way out of the cone right now. But because I increased it to 83 kHz, it made that cone bigger.